much yesterday about the Minnesota Vikings once again, but this is not regarding Sam Darnold. This is regarding JJ McCarthy and the talks that teams are going to be calling to see his availability if they're willing to give up McCarthy in the midst of Sam Darnold having a phenomenal season, MVP numbers leading the team to a worst case scenario, a 14-win team. Best case scenario, they beat the Lions and get the number one seed in NFC, a 15-win team. Absolutely phenomenal. You look at Sam Darnold's stats, they're unbelievable. I made a video a few days ago about talking about Sam Darnold, so it's not going to be too much about him, but we will discuss him a little bit in this, and more about JJ McCarthy. Like I said, there have been teams that on ESPN Radio, as you see on top right here, from Adam Schefter, what he said. It's a quote, JJ McCarthy would have been a top, if not the top quarterback in this draft. Adam Schefter says teams will be calling the Vikings to inquire about their rookie quarterback this offseason. Now, I want to kind of pump the brakes on that when he says he would be, or would have been the top quarterback in this draft class, because there's two ways of looking at it real quick, depending on how you look at McCarthy. They can talk about how great McCarthy is, or it can just talk about how bad the draft class is, and it could be certainly it's a positive or negative on how you look at McCarthy. For this one, I mean it's tough to judge where I would rank him if he was coming out in the 2025 draft. I would like to think because of the physical tools that Cam Ward has, the more off-play scripts, the stronger arm, he would still be the number one quarterback over McCarthy. But I do understand why McCarthy would be in this. The top quarterback potentially in this one over Shedeur and Cam Ward, because of just again how weak the quarterback class is. If you're just looking at the top two, outside of that, it's pretty weak. You have Jalen Monroe, who we have yet to see who, if he's going to return to Alabama. He's going to come out in the draft. He is certainly a raw prospect. He kind of reminds me coming out of college, similar to Malik Willis. Has extreme athleticism, has a high ceiling, but has a very low floor, no doubt, and that's the huge risk you take. I don't know where he's going to land in this year's draft if he decides to declare for it. And like people too, Carson Beck, I'm not a big fan of either coming out. I thought it was a bad decision for him coming to this year's draft, but that may also play in the part of, once again, it's a weak quarterback class, and he knows next year, if he does come out, it's going to be worse for him. So this is probably the best it's going to get for him for his value. But again, for McCarthy, it's debatable, no doubt. He would certainly be a top three quarterback in this draft class by default. But it's interesting to see many teams reaching out. I won't say so fast, but many teams just trying to take the chance on seeing if McCarthy is available if they want to trade him. Because personally, for me, I don't believe they are going to get rid of him. I think it's probably just kind of just common sense. I won't say common sense, but it just makes sense. Essentially, they traded up in 2024 to the 10th overall pick to select him. They showed you right then and there that that's their guy. They believe in him. Not that they gave a huge haul to trade up to get him, but they said right then and there, this is the guy that we want. He's gonna be our franchise guy, and this is the guy who we're gonna build around for years to come. That should already tell you that. So McCarthy is not on the table. Though I will say, depending on what the value is for him, if teams are willing to give up multiple first-round picks, if that is certainly a possibility, I would at least entertain that and think about it. But outside of that, it has to be something worth my while, of course. It can't be just a first-round pick and a decent player, or first and a second, a first and a third, or whatever you want to package up in the deal, whatever you think JJ McCarthy is worth. Because essentially, teams are practically basically drafting JJ McCarthy. They're doing that. We really haven't seen that much on McCarthy. We see him one preseason game, and that's it. And there's a very small sample size to go off of, and I wouldn't say don't even put too much stock into that, because it's preseason, vanilla defenses, vanilla offenses. It's just that's what it's very bare bones type of play. We shouldn't go off of one preseason game and say this guy's gonna be amazing, or if he had a horrible game, this guy's gonna be terrible. It's a preseason, so there shouldn't be too much stock in that, and that's the problem, is we don't really have anything on him. So you can basically treat JJ McCarthy as essentially drafting him, and how would you feel about essentially asking how much would you trade up to get McCarthy if you do believe he's the number one quarterback in this draft class? So again, at the very least, it's going to have to be multiple first-round picks if teams are going to be calling about him. Anything short from that, don't even bother. But we're kind of looking at McCarthy coming out, at least in his numbers. The only thing we can really go off of is his Michigan numbers and what he did. So we're going to go into a draft profile for Pro Football Focus. Again, the only thing they have on there is his Michigan stats. And he was productive. He was efficient, no doubt about it, especially in his final season in 2023. Over 72% completion percentage, just under 3,000 yards passing, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 116.6 QBR. Definitely improved from last year, or the year before in 2022, when he had 64 completion percentage, just a little over 2,700 yards passing, 21 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a 105.9 QBR. So he did improve, no doubt. My biggest issue was he wasn't the main driving force of Michigan. It was Blake Corum, the running game, and that great defense they had. Now, give credit to McCarthy. He had to make the plays. He had to make the right reads, the right throws, the right decisions. So I'll always give a quarterback credit for that in the effort for that. But when I say he was the main driving piece, or when I say, man, this guy was unbelievable, he's going to be the top quarterback in the 2024 draft class, I don't think so. And for some reason, he just rose immensely on the draft boards from the end of the championship game to the NFL draft. You had obviously Harbaugh, his coach, talking about it. He would be surprised if he was the number one quarterback taken. Of course, obviously it's his head coach, so he's going to prop up his Michigan players to get him drafted highly. But it felt like at that point, is JJ McCarthy really going to go top 3? And there was some mock drafts that did have him going top 3. I think one I had was the Patriots, 3rd overall, going over Drake May. Who was he going to knock out in that spot? Of course, we know that did not happen. Drake May, Jane Daniels, and Caleb Williams were the top 3, went 1 through 3. And we saw, shockingly too, Michael Penix go ahead of JJ McCarthy too, which I'm a big fan of Penix coming out too. I thought he was a good quarterback. I think some people were kind of bashing him a little too much in the draft process. And once again, McCarthy goes for the 5th quarterback in the draft class, and then soon after, Bo Nix at 6. But again, you look at the numbers, they don't really pop at you because that's not really what the identity of Michigan was, and there's no problem with that. That's what got him back to being a top team in the NCAA and won the national championship in 2023. So it definitely worked out for what they are. It was the run game, make the passes when you need to, and playing great defense. And we see that with Harbaugh with the Chargers. Justin Herbert's numbers aren't off the charts. It's not a Joe Burrow type of season or a Josh Allen type of season when you look at the numbers, but it's very efficient. It's similar to what JJ McCarthy is doing. Low interceptions, touchdowns aren't off the screen, but you look at the pieces they have around him too. Outside McConkey doesn't really have too much to work with. So you see what the MO is for Harbaugh and how he has his quarterbacks play, and we look at the analysts or kind of breaking them down. What the pros were: good, clean throwing motion. He has an arm talent, but needs to continue to get stronger and put weight to maximize it. He is a little bit thin, 6'3", 202. Can add in mobility. Not afraid to throw in tight windows, including over the middle. No reservations about throwing over the middle of the field. He can hang on, or he can hang tough in the pocket. The cons obviously is his build, slender build. He can get locked into his primary reads and decision making. Took a step forward in 2023, but needs to become more consistent, especially pre-snap. So overall, again, he wasn't a horrible prospect. I understand why people like McCarthy and what they see the high potential of him coming out. And I think he landed in a perfect situation, one of the best situations he could have landed in with O'Connell as a head coach. Great coaching staff, great training staff. As you saw with the report cards we've seen the last few years, they always get A's or A pluses on every category. And you see the players he has around him: JJ McCarthy, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. Great defense from Brian Flores as of right now. So it was an amazing situation that he landed in. It was definitely by far the best one. And it kind of goes back to the saying of, it's better to go to, the right fit as opposed to just trying to always be the first overall pick. That's what players are always obsessed with. There's nothing wrong with that, being the top guy, being the number one pick in the draft, but I think it's better where you land as opposed to when you land. And that was, I think, that really was a perfect example for McCarthy with this one. So, like we said, certainly he went down soon after in the preseason, and Sam Darnold comes in and has a MVP caliber season, like we said. So I wanted to kind of mention some of the teams. I do have quite a few that would call for McCarthy's status and what they were willing to give up. I have a draft board here to show you where they land in this year's draft, to kind of give you a better visual representation of the teams. So number one I have is kind of split into 2 categories: the bad teams, of course, and also the playoff teams that maybe will soon to be looking for a franchise guy. So the first team I have is the New York Giants. So no doubt, it looks like that all signs point towards Shedeur Sanders, and this probably means absolutely nothing picking the Giants. But I'm going to throw them in there just because I think they should look at everything, no doubt. Even though I said at the beginning of this, McCarthy is probably unlikely to get moved, and it's kind of a waste of time unless you're going to be giving up a huge haul for him. I think at least they should look at McCarthy. And I don't know how they viewed McCarthy in the 2024 process. They took him, obviously they passed over him to get Malik Neighbors because they believed in Daniel Jones, so that should give you an indication for that. But with Daniel Jones being gone, and now, funny enough, with the Minnesota Vikings, I think at the very least they should look at that. I don't know if Brian Daboll is going to be still the head coach there, or it's going to be a new regime coming in. Certainly the GM I would believe, is getting fired. But that should be a team that should definitely look at it. I don't know what's going to happen if they're going to have all the two quarterbacks available, I should say, with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, because we don't know the status of the Titans. If they're going to take one, or they're going to build off of Will Levis, we'll see. The Giants should certainly be a team to look at. JJ McCarthy. Funny enough, like we were just talking about, is the Tennessee Titans at number 2. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with Will Levis because he's had a huge step back in his sophomore season. Horrible decision making, many turnovers, especially the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, just horrible, infamous plays he's had. He's gotten benched, injuries. Not saying he's injury prone, but he's had injuries this year. So it's been a huge mess for Will Levis, and is that something you really want to hitch your wagon to going forward? And it's not really a answer that a lot of Titans fans are going to like. If they came out and said we're sticking with Will Levis in 2025, we believe in him, it's going to be a hard sell to do that. So I think at the very least, they have the best option, no doubt. They're in a better position than the New York Giants because they have everybody available. They have no doubt Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, because the Patriots will be going with Travis Hunter. Unless they trade back and get a bigger haul for someone to trade up and get one of those two quarterbacks, they're taking Travis Hunter first overall, so they have all the selection in the world for this year's quarterback class. Again, similar to the Giants, I think they should really just look at McCarthy and see if they like him or not. If they think he is the top guy, if he matches up with the other two, that to the Titans certainly look at is a team that I would say should be in the mix with that. Also looking at number 2, they might take a wide receiver, McMillan, coming out of Arizona. If they did want to stick with Will Levis, just build around them, no doubt. But Tennessee probably in the best spot overall because they have all the picks for the quarterbacks. Next, we're gonna move to the Raiders. Same thing too. It's just I do worry that they're too far down to get either one, Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. At this point, a team might even jump up and take one that we're not expecting. Who knows? The draft always has surprises with that. But the Raiders kind of screwed themselves. They dropped all the way to 8, and they're in limbo. There's no doubt they can trade up and get one of these guys if they fall. But number 8 it's a little tough, especially if the other two teams I showed you, the Titans and the Giants, are looking for a quarterback. They're going to be soon gone. So the Raiders by default, may have to turn to elsewhere. And JJ McCarthy, like I said, you're essentially drafting McCarthy again because you just have very little on him. He has some experience in the NFL coming off an injury, but it's certainly a spot for. I don't know if Pierce is even going to be the head coach either. It looks like all signs, once again, similar to like the Giants. It looks like Pierce is going to be gone. He's going to be released after his first full season of being the full-time head coach. So we'll see what the next regime comes in to and what they decide. And lastly, it's the New York Jets going back to one spot above, number 7. I think there's no really new explanation with this. It's been a huge disaster for the Jets. They're most likely going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams looks like he's going to be gone with him as well. The new regime coming in, whoever that may be, is going to be looking for their guy. And I think the Raiders are in the same situation too. They're just too far down in the draft boards to take one of the top 2. So I think they should look at all options on the table. JJ McCarthy could certainly be one. I like the pieces they have with the Jets. It would be a good roster-wise, not organization-wise, because they're absolutely horrible with their owner and so forth, all going down the line. But I like the pieces that they have. Garrett Wilson, that make him happy, getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, and you have a great young wide receiver in him. You have Breece Hall. You still have Allen Lazard if he's still going to be on the team. So there are some pieces. The offensive line has to be fixed, no doubt. Have to do whatever it takes to fix that if they're getting McCarthy. But at least for offensive wise, for the pieces it does make sense. He does have a decent lineup around him if he does go to the New York Jets. So now we move into 3 teams I picked for the playoffs. Teams that are doing well, but are borderline, are fringe playoff teams, I should say, at least for one of them, but should be looking for their quarterback in the future. The Seattle Seahawks. They've had an up and down season, and they've done okay with Geno Smith. He's certainly exceeded expectations at some point of his playing style, but I think it has dipped down since his first breakout season with the Seahawks. They're going to be looking for a franchise guy, no doubt. Geno Smith is not the answer, and I think they're going to be very soon moving off of him. And I also don't believe Sam Howell is the franchise guy either. If there's a swing on him, and maybe they'll turn to him as their franchise guy, or at least their starting quarterback. But they can do so much better than both of them. And I think McCarthy, like we said, just the untapped potential. You don't know what you have in him. There's another great situation where I said for the Jets, you have Jackson Smith-Njigba, you have DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, a decent offensive line, good defense, a young head coach. I like what they have in Seattle here. Again, it's an up and down situation, at least for this year, with how they play. There's times they play great, there's times they play horrible. But I think JJ McCarthy would be a great spot here if you want to bring him in. He sits behind Geno Smith for one more season, and then gets another year on removed from the ACL injury, and then steps into a good situation. Like I said, I love the piece they have around him, and it'd be a good starting point for McCarthy, somewhat similar to the Vikings in terms of what he has around him. Next is the Pittsburgh Steelers, going to 25. Again, this is a similar mindset with the Seahawks. We don't know what the status is going to be with the quarterbacks coming out after this year. I don't see him bringing back Justin Fields, even though he did lead him to a winning record, 4-2. He played decent, but he didn't really flash enough. Really didn't do enough to prove that he is a franchise quarterback. So they'll probably move off of him. And Russell Wilson, I think he will get a contract extension. It might be just for a 1 or 2 year deal, and which is perfect. If they decide to get McCarthy, he sits behind a Hall of Fame head coach, Hall of Fame head coach, and also a Hall of Fame quarterback. No doubt, it'd be a perfect situation for him. Again, sitting there another year removed from the ACL injury. The pieces are lacking though. Outside of George Pickens, it's really not too much. We don't know what's going to happen with Najee Harris. They declined his 4th year option. Maybe they bring him back, but he is a solid running back. Did not live up to expectations coming out of college, but a decent running back, 1,000-yard rusher per year. Kevin Austin certainly had a breakout season this year. You have Pat Freiermuth as well. And Mike Williams, we don't know what the future holds for him, if we're going to decide to keep him or not. But again, it's decent, definitely lacking in the offensive side. Offensive line is a little bit better than it has been. But I think it's a great situation. It's a stable organization, probably one of the best ones out of this whole list you see on here that I picked out. So that'd be an amazing spot for him. I think he would thrive in the Steelers, just the fact of the organization, the support system they have. And lastly is going back to the Los Angeles Rams. Sean McVay. We've seen what he's done with quarterbacks throughout the whole, his whole tenure in the NFL. He turned Jared Goff around when people thought he was an absolute bust after his rookie season. 0-7 as a starter, comes in, makes him look phenomenal, and in a few years from then, makes it to the Super Bowl. After that, brings in Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has, I won't say revives his career, but is finally on a winning team, and we see what they do. First year there, wins the Super Bowl, and he has put up big numbers since then with the Rams. It's a similar thing, too. He sits behind if you want to say borderline Hall of Fame quarterback, at least a great quarterback, no doubt, in Matthew Stafford and what he's done in the NFL, and arguably one of the best, if not the best, offensive-minded head coaches in the league. You have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Williams at running back. Offensive line has to get a little bit better, no doubt, but a similar suit to the Steelers. I think the Steelers and the Rams are the 2 best options for him if I had to rank the teams that I predict potentially could call for JJ McCarthy's status. So I think that should be no doubt. The dream scenario would be the Rams and the Steelers. But again, I like what the Rams have. It's a good organization, a phenomenal head coach, and good pieces around them to build off the future. Let's kind of wrap it up. Like I said, again, what I said in the beginning, I don't believe the Vikings will move off him. I think it's dumb. It's pretty obvious that they won't. Again, they trade up for him. They believe in him. They want him. I know Sam Darnold is having a phenomenal season. People are pushing for Sam Darnold, saying, hey, they should keep him, they should sign him, they should extend him. At the very least, it should be what I said in the video. It's a 1 or 2 year deal. It should not be long term. Even though Sam Darnold is having a phenomenal year all across the board, I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I want to say it's kind of, I worry it is a little bit of fool's gold in this sense where, yeah, he's doing this now, but if he takes the money as he should and goes elsewhere to a worse team, he's going to burn somebody. He's not going to be the perennial quarterback he is this year. He is going to screw someone over if he signs that big contract elsewhere. And maybe he still continues the success with the Vikings because of what they have and the coaching staff and so forth. But to me, at the end of the day, it's going to be probably Sam Darnold going elsewhere and JJ McCarthy being the starter next year. The perfect scenario would be at least bringing Sam Darnold back for another year and having McCarthy sit, having what I've said throughout for all these teams. Another year removed from the ACL, and he still learns. He's I don't want to say he's a little bit of a project, but it would certainly benefit him because the question marks I have coming out of college for him. But at the end of the day, McCarthy's a Viking. I do not, unless a team just gives up a ridiculous haul for him. He's a Minnesota Viking. He's staying there. He's going to be the future guy, and Sam Darnold is probably going to be elsewhere. So the whole discussion of the trade offers is going to probably die pretty quickly because of just teams not really going to give up too much. Again, if it's a ridiculous haul, I would consider it. Outside of that, it's not worth my time.